We are only 1 week away from the NHL trade deadline, and we're taking a look at all the latest talk from around the NHL. We're talking about teams like the Montreal Canadiens, Winnipeg Jets, Toronto Maple Leafs, Buffalo Sabres, the Caolina Hurricanes. Could they be a stealth team to pull off a major trade? All that and more coming up next. Before we jump into today's video, I just want to quickly acknowledge our sponsor, Manscaped. Manscaped's provided some great products to us here at Top Shelf Hockey and has provided an exclusive offer for all Top Shelf Hockey viewers, which is 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com on all orders. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. As I mentioned, today we're taking a look at all the latest trade rumors from around the NHL, 1 week away from the NHL trade deadline of April the 12th. Lots of information coming today between the 31 Thoughts podcast released earlier, which had Chris Johnson appearing with Elliot Friedman. Of course, they're both Sportsnet insiders talking about all their intel that they have. And of course, there's a podcast put together by different TSN insiders, including Darren Drigger, Frank Saravalli, and Pierre LeBrun as well. So all kinds of information from the two dominant Canadian sports networks here in Canada for us to discuss. Now, first up, let's talk about the Winnipeg Jets. Now, pretty much the consensus here from most of the insiders that the Winnipeg Jets are a team that pretty much will be trying their hardest to add here, and it's most definitely going to be on the back end. I think we can all agree that the blue line is the area that they need the most. There was already talk about this, then they lost Nathan Beaulieu. So depending on, what's available out there and what the price tags are, it could be anywhere from somebody who's more of a second pair defenseman, top pair defenseman, all the way to being a depth defenseman. But Kevin Cheveldayoff really should believe that his team is pretty strong here and can make a good run here at a solid playoff run if they can make some small additions. They're already pretty solid as it is, but it certainly can get better on the back end, I think, as we go, have a shot here at a deep playoff run. So some of the top targets for the Winnipeg Jets on the blue line would include Columbus defenseman David Savard. Now, he is going to likely be one of the top defenders out there on the market and is going to have a lot of competition to probably try to pry him out of Columbus. Of course, the Predators were a team that were expected to have a lot of players available, including Ekholm and Ellis and others. And now that they've won 8 of their last 10 or battled themselves back to a playoff spot, pretty much all these insiders pretty much agree that the Predators are very unlikely now to be making any trades at all, to be selling off pieces. They do have guys like Granlund and Howlett on expiring deals. Could they maybe move one of those guys? Perhaps, but David Poile's not really in a situation anymore that he really needs to. So for a team like Winnipeg, who was likely having conversations and hoping to be able to add a blue liner to that effect, they're going to have to likely go in other directions now, like Savard and others. But some other names that have been brought up here for Winnipeg to be considering include Jamie Alexiak with the Dallas Stars. You've got Brandon Montour of the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, he's another right shot defenseman, not really playing up to his potential in Buffalo like many of the team there. So that's a real possibility that shouldn't cost too much. I mean, I know the Sabres paid a good price to bring Montour in last year, but they're not going to get anywhere close to that coming back now, at least you wouldn't think. You also have some other guys out there, including Zadorov in Chicago. Now, he certainly would be a big bruising type of defenseman that would add a different element back there as well for Winnipeg. Certainly not going to be a Dustin Byfuglien defenseman like they used to have here, but out of all the guys around the league that might be available, he might come as one of the closest to be able to give you the size and the physicality to be anywhere near that. I mean, he's not Byfuglien by any means, but still, like I said, he's one of the few guys who can add that dimension back there. Even though Nathan Beaulieu, for example, wasn't a huge guy by any means, he certainly played a little bit bigger than what he was, wasn't afraid to drop the gloves, and they could use a guy like Zadorov to maybe try to bring some of that in. And it wouldn't be complete shocker as well if the Jets were able to try to maybe add more than one piece here, but a lot of it's going to depend on the price tag. If they need a contract to go out, Matthew Perreault is the most likely trade candidate to make that happen. Obviously, it's going to depend on how much salary can be retained by the teams trading these guys, but the Jets have a lot of conversations on the go, lots of players that they're rumored to be inquiring on, doing their due diligence right now, analyzing the price tags, and we'll see what they do from here. Now, the other thing that's pretty consistent across the board is that they all feel that Marc Bergevin in Montreal likely does have one more trade up his sleeve, even though he doesn't want to admit it publicly. He really was going against what he was doing here, saying that he wasn't going to make a trade. He'd had no cap space, and then the next day he goes and trades for Eric Staal. then after that said, yeah, I'm probably done. I really can't do much more. But nobody's really buying it at this point. They feel that a contract will likely need to go out, which is the most likely candidate, at least no guarantees, but very well could be Arturi Lehkonen. And of course, the Habs have recently said that they weren't likely making him available, but really, for the right price on defense, I think they would. Hard to say what level of defender that they will be looking to add. I think a lot of the same guys I just mentioned about the Winnipeg Jets very well could be, a team like Montreal going after as well. I mean, there's only so many defensemen that are top 4 or even top 6 that are going to be available. So considering how many teams are going to be buyers, they're likely going to be bidding on a lot of the same talent out there. So it just really boils down to how much they go after here. But Marc Bergevin in Montreal certainly expected to add on the back end. Now, when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs, there's some different opinions out there, but a lot of them feel that the Maple Leafs likely adding Angola is at least a possibility, but it's still just a little bit too early to tell. As we reported on before, Kyle Dubas seems to be doing his due diligence to kind of feel around the league, see what's out there, what the price tags are, that kind of stuff. But right now, we don't really have any kind of long-term prognosis on Freddie Andersen. And even though Jack Campbell has played exceptionally well, a couple of things to note: he still looks like he's battling a leg injury, and he's missed pretty much every practice after a game day. So he's certainly not 100%. I think that's fair to say. Now, Michael Hutchinson picked up the win for them last night against the Flames. He's actually done relatively well, obviously considering what they've had out of Hutchinson in the past. But do they want to go into playoffs if Anderson's going to be out with Campbell and Hutch as your 1-2? I just don't know, especially where the health of Jack Campbell to some degrees even questioned as well. So they could be looking at insurance, and apparently they have had conversations with the Sabres around Linus Ullmark. Now, Ullmark's probably, out of all the goaltenders that could be available, probably one of the most interesting names out there. You have to throw David Rittich at Calgary probably in there as well, but they're certainly probably the top 2 guys that the Leafs are, somewhat kind of intrigued by and could be making offers for, but a lot of it's going to boil down to what, they're able to do with Freddie Andersen. Is Andersen going to be able to come back and play? What's his status? Does he go on long-term IR? Do they consider trading Andersen? Probably doubtful at this point, but still, his health and the whole situation around him is pretty much holding things up on probably deciding essentially where they go. The Leafs are pretty transparent generally when it comes to injuries, but they've been pretty coy on releasing any information here on Andersen, so it's really hard to get a read on where things are at with that. But the fact of them adding an insurance and between the pipes is a real possibility, and of course, they want to add a forward as well. So, they could be having a situation here where they might be dealing with multiple teams. Now, one name that came up today on the 31 Thoughts podcast that I found interesting, as well as mentioned by TSN, that could be of interest to the Leafs, as well as probably a few other teams as well, would be Scott Laughton in Philadelphia. We know the Flyers are a team that's a bit of a mess right now. They're certainly not as bad a team, I think, as they've played and where they show in the standings. I think there's just a lot of stuff going the wrong way for them. It's hard to really put a pulse on exactly what has gone wrong with the Flyers this year. I mean, there's a few holes for sure, like losing Matt Niskanen was big. Their defense has not lived up to par, and that's been a big part of it, but it's not everything for sure. Obviously, Laughton is a player who could play a versatile role for a lot of teams, and a team like the Leafs, as well as others, including even their rival in Pittsburgh or other teams in the East, including maybe even the Bruins, would be probably showing interest in a player like that. So Scott Laughton apparently right now is not necessarily expected to sign an extension with the Flyers and could become unrestricted free agent this summer. So it's quite possible that he could find himself on the move. And the Flyers, even though I think they'll be a relatively quiet team at the deadline, at least you would think, they could make a move of that nature. Now, I think the Flyers could do some more surgery to the core of this team and make some more significant changes, but you would think that some of those more significant changes would be more likely to come in the offseason, but hard to say for sure. But the Flyers are a team to watch, and the Leafs could be showing interest there with Laughton. They also mentioned Kyle Palmieri. Of course, we'll talk about him a little further here, but it was believed about a week or two ago that the Canadian teams are likely not in play when it came to his services, but now that the quarantine rules have been changed, that very well could change as well. I mean, it was the same thing with Eric Stahl. Many believed he was not wanting to come to Canada, but he did in fact end up doing so. I do think it's a little bit less likely that Palmieri goes to the Leafs, even though I can understand why they would have interest. He does fit what they're rumored to be looking for. But given the price tag, and his first choice probably would be to go to a team more like the Islanders, I would think, given the fact of how close to home it is. But we'll have to see on that. But the Leafs are looking at a guy like Lawton, Palmieri, to a degree. You can't rule out Taylor Hall in Toronto as well, but we don't really have a lot of information there. I know they were talking to Buffalo, as Friedman mentioned before, and he wondered maybe if Hall was in play there. They could get a variety of things in between Toronto and Buffalo. They have a lot that they could move, so it's an intriguing possibility, but no guarantees that the Leafs and the Sabres pull off a trade there. Now, they also made a lot of good points on a team like the Caolina Hurricanes. They all kind of agreed that the Hurricanes very well could be a stealth team to make a significant move. Even though the Hurricanes have been one of the better teams in the NHL this season, they have an owner who's somewhat aggressive. They have Don Waddell, who's not afraid to make the big trades. And we know that the situation in Carolina here is they made it to the conference finals 2 years ago. They did a little bit of damage in the playoffs last year, but didn't go quite as far. You think that they want to give this team a boost. They have Rod Brind'Amour on an expiring contract as a head coach. They have some decisions there. They got Dougie Hamilton as a top UFA defenseman. They have to make some decisions there, which, both those contracts are coming along, but still not close to being done, is the latest we've heard on no. So they said that it makes sense that after all the success they've had the last couple of years, to pull off something significant here wouldn't be a total shocker for them to really go all in and really go for it this year. This might be the year where they could do a lot of damage and try to get even closer to being Stanley Cup champions. Now, even though they didn't drop any names per se that the Hurricanes would target, many people got the feel here that they might have been referring to Patrick Laine in Columbus. Now, we know that the Hurricanes were a team that were heavily interested in Laine before. He ended up going to Columbus instead. Obviously, they had the better package to satisfy the Winnipeg Jets, getting their center in Pierre-Luc Dubois. But we know things haven't really worked out the best. Laine looks totally dejected, lost his confidence. Tortorella has, certainly played mind games a little bit with him, I think it's fair to say. He's even scratched Jack Roslovic recently, who had a hot start and then cooled down. So, something's got to give in Columbus, and you wonder, no guarantees here that Laine goes, obviously. I think it's something that the Jackets are going to be super careful with, and obviously it would largely depend on the return that the Carolina Hurricanes are willing to offer up here. But could Laine's return to play with a guy like Sebastian Aho really give him the confidence boost in the style of play that he really needs to really succeed and excel in the NHL and get back to being that 40 goal scorer and the fun-loving Patrick Laine that we saw in the first couple of years in the league? I'm sure they would ask about a player like Marty Necas, but that's probably not going to happen. They certainly have rejected trade offers for him recently as well. So it's difficult to say what the Hurricanes could offer up to really entice Columbus to make that kind of trade, but I couldn't help but think of Laine the way they were talking about Columbus in a stealth trade. So we can't link those two teams and Laine to Carolina based on sources. That's just kind of my gut feeling on what they might have been alluding to. So we'll see, but it wouldn't be shocking as well. I do agree. Carolina could be a team to watch here at the deadline. And of course, lots of talk around Buffalo. We've already talked about Linus Ullmark, Brendan Montour. They've been getting calls on Ristolainen, but apparently they seem to be less interested in trading him. But the big one, of course, is Taylor Hall. Darren Dreger just reported a few minutes before I started recording that from what he's hearing, it looks as though talks are intensifying on a Taylor Hall trade. He didn't get the feeling, at least not yet, that things were really imminent or all that close, so not necessarily going to happen today. But he wonders here in the next couple of days if we'll see in Buffalo what we've already seen in New Jersey, and a player like Taylor Hall being a healthy scratch, being sat out just to protect the asset while the Sabres continue to have trade talks to get as much of a return as they can here. So we'll see. Obviously the Islanders, the Bruins, the Leafs, the Avalanche to a degree, probably less likely there. Even St. Louis at one point had reportedly been interested. There's lots of teams that are reportedly interested. It's really going to boil down to the price. I'm not sure anybody's going to pay the first round pick they were rumored to be looking for, but if the deal is right, there's certainly going to be a market for Taylor Hall, and many of the insiders here today, between the two podcasts we were just referencing, certainly expect a deal to get done. It's just a matter of where he ends up. Now, another interesting tidbit here on the Ducks. They're a team we've talked about a fair bit lately. Certainly some players with term who could move, but it'll be more challenging to get those deals done, like a Josh Manson, like a Ricard Raquel, and Adam Henrique. They've all had their name out there. Danton Hyman as well has been out there linked to the Canucks in the past. Will we see Captain Ryan Getzlaf get moved and be going after the chase of Stanley Cup? Now, they kind of most of them agreed here that for the most part, that's really up to Getzlaf. If he wants to, the team will try to accommodate. If he doesn't, they won't. It's just that simple. But there's even a lot of talk around his future. I know the Sportsnet guys on 31 Thoughts were saying that they felt that there's a good chance he comes back, signs another couple of years, that the Ducks would really like him to be the captain through the next phase of this team here as they continue to rebuild and be there as the role model and go-to guy for the young players to learn from. But one nugget here from Frank Saravalli, TSN, he put it out there that he said he wouldn't be completely shocked if Getzlaf decided to retire after this year, since he is a pending unrestricted free agent. Obviously, it's a bit of a different environment right now in the COVID situation. He's got his Stanley Cup from when he was young, when he was first starting to play. He's made lots of money, loves living in California. Is it possible that he just says, you know what, I'm done, and he hangs him up? I mean, without hearing from Getzlaf and where his thoughts are, and it's really hard to say, but according to Frank Saravalli, he thinks that's a possibility as well. So it'll be interesting to see the future of Ryan Getzlaf beyond this deadline and then beyond into next year. Will he still be around, or will he decide to hang him up? So let me know your thoughts on what these teams are going to do. All kinds of speculation leading into the deadline here. Next Monday, April 12th, is the cutoff, so it'll be a big day. We'll hopefully see a few trades this week as we get ready for deadline day. Let me know your thoughts down below and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.